And it's an excellent day for the Pirate Broadcast, and we're here to introduce interesting people doing interesting things online and on LinkedIn. And so today we have David. Is it Sim?
It's Sime. It's Sime.
All right. I was going back and forth, that I didn't ask you before we started. So I was like, okay. So we're here and we're doing some things, and I want to highlight everybody that's joining in on the broadcast stream. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about technology today, and we're going to make it interesting because I think anyone that's been in technology long enough understands the ups and downs, the ins and outs, and what's taken place. And David has been investigating a section of technology that's going to be in the future. Wouldn't you agree, David?
Oh, I would say it's already very much in the present, but you're right. I think it's going to be fairly, what's the word, ubiquitous in the future.
Yes. So David is located in, is it Glasgow?
Yeah, you got that pronunciation right.
Okay, all right. And so we're bringing David live from Glasgow, and thank you so much for being here, David. I really appreciate the time and opportunity to share what you're doing, highlight some of the things you've done, and some of the things you're planning on doing. And so, how did you arrive at this point in your life with VR, AR, and all this technology that you're dealing with right now today? Tell us the backstory of how you got here.
Okay. Well, it's a long story, but the truncated version is I kicked off as a marketer back in the late 20th century. And I used to try to help people to communicate with the world, with their small businesses and so forth, using novel techniques rather than getting ripped off by the big boys, directories, and newspapers, magazines, and that kind of thing, which used to bankrupt more of them than it helped. So then the internet came along, and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. This allows small operations to reach anywhere in the world. It used to be that you had companies and you had multinational companies and never the twain shall meet, but now with the advent of the internet, you could, anybody, with a small bedroom operation could be operating multinationally, and this got me very excited, particularly
as on your phone here.
Yeah, well, particularly as my background was what I'd been most interested in when I'd been studying at university was consumer psychology and sociology of different countries and cultural sociology. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Now I can start using these skills, and I can actually start learning about, okay, how do you sell the same object in a different country to different people? So that fascinated me. Anyway, I was lucky enough to have helped to start up a few small businesses, and those happened to be in the tech field. And so I had a lot of techie friends. I'm not really a techie person. In my family, I'm the artistic one, so the stupid one. But,
creative guy. You're the creative guy, huh?
Exactly. So my brother is the coder of the family, and nobody quite knows what he does, but he earns megabucks doing it. But anyway, these tech people that I'd helped out helped me. So they taught me how to use the internet, how to do not coding, but certainly how to understand the capabilities of websites and so forth. And I taught them how to communicate with human beings. So between me and them, we kind of helped each other out and continue to do so. In fact, one of my best friends still is a guy called Alan Fair, who runs Contact Digital, and he and I started out at the same time and have been helping each other out ever since. Anyway, after that, I ran a couple of other companies, and I started one that was a digital marketing company that was predominantly focused in video. Because what I noticed was that people's attention spans had shrunk down from just a few minutes, which seems tiny by normal marketing standards, to online it went down to fractions of a second. And how on earth are we going to convey any meaning or any message to these people this way? So instead of using text, which we traditionally used, we moved it to primarily visual, and then eventually, if a picture can speak 1,000 words, then a video can speak 1,000,000. So we ended up going in the direction of video. So I started a company called Oncor Video. However, consumer taste change as time goes on. People wanted more interactivity, more immersion, and I thought, well, the no-brainer here is to move into things like virtual reality and this new augmented reality thing. And suddenly everything exploded, because what I didn't realize was that I was getting into an extremely immature and therefore exciting marketplace. There weren't that many other people doing it. Everybody was doing it in a different way. There was no common sense of here is how it should be done. And there's also a lot more collaboration in this industry because it's so new and because everybody wants it. I mean, I feel like I've gone from struggling to sell something in a crowded marketplace to wandering into a room full of starving men with a tray of freshly baked cakes. It's the easiest sell I have ever encountered. They will just say, "What can you do?" And I say, "Anything. What do you want?" So now I'm doing that, and the beautiful thing is because there's no scarcity of demand, and there are a lot of other people doing it now, but there's still more work than people delivering. It means that we can afford to collaborate, and because it moves so incredibly fast, things change constantly. There is not only no need to reinvent any wheels. There's no opportunity to. If I want a specific piece of technology that's already been built, rather than build it from scratch, I have to find somebody who's already built it, and then bolt in my unique things, and then find somebody else with their own unique things, and between us we can cobble together something that can do anything. But it means it's incredibly collaborative space, and I've never been happier in a business sense, because there's no animosity, there's no scrabbling around for crumbs. Everybody's just working together towards a common goal. It's lovely.
Well, I think the bigger takeaway from that is the fact that you have abundance in an industry. It's a blue ocean, it's not a red ocean, right? So the opportunities are endless, because every time you turn around, especially when it comes to technology, and this is what I've discovered along the way, is that working with other people and collaborating with other people and building relationships, it opens up even more opportunities. And coming from a psychology background and communications and looking at different ways and methods of communicating with people, the technology almost blends in this opportunity to communicate in so many different ways that it's really about what can we build, not can we build it. It's what is it that we want to build next. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, there's the operative phrase right there, Russ. You've hit the nail on the head. We are collaborative social animals, really, aren't we? If you were to look around any room, anybody who's watching this, look around the room and point out one thing in that room that was created by one individual on their own, that didn't require any input from somebody else, that didn't require any collaboration. And I challenge you to find any single object, even if it's something that you've crafted yourself. Well, what tools did you use to craft it? Did you make them?
No.
This is the thing. This is how we stand on the shoulders collectively of all the generations that have gone before us since the advent of the written word. We work together to create almost anything that we create, because we're pack monkeys, depending on your belief, right?
Yeah. Well, look at what we're doing here. We met online with LinkedIn. We went back and forth, had a conversation. I invited you on the pirate broadcast. You're going, what the heck is this pirate broadcast? What's this guy doing in his home office, bedroom, on a phone, collaborating with people. And it's a beautiful thing, because I mean, I got into the advertising industry in '85 before the internet. And then I got into technology in the early '90s. And I've seen the entire range of the introduction of technology into. Now you go down the road and there's billboards with digital, they're swapping out the signs, and radio is different. I mean, we could start a podcast today, right now, and broadcast. And you're in a unique position though, because in my experience, AR and virtual reality is even opening up doors that we didn't imagine, like medicine, remote medicine, and the opportunity to train people on environments that don't exist. So it's really an opportunity to really explode this industry. And talk a little bit about the process of developing a VR environment for, say, I saw the one on one of your feeds about the boat and the ship being, evacuation, and how to start a life raft, a lifeboat. So,
sorry, Ross, I lost you for a little second there. Just going to switch off my audio and switch on again.
Okay.
Right, and that's not working. Just a sec.
Technology. We're here.
That works.
Is that better? Is that better?
That's much better, thank you. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. This is an experiment. We're going to test this for You're in VR.
So your question was, what's the process for setting up a virtual reality environment? Was that it?
Yeah. Walk us through the process, because a lot of people new to VR or augmented reality, it's much it's kind of like this idea that really isn't familiar to them, and so someone that's in it, the knowledge bubble, as I call it, you're inside the bubble and the language, the communication, how to talk to people that are familiar with it. However, for the person on LinkedIn or somebody doing meat processing or whatever it happens to be,
sure,
they're unfamiliar with it. And break it down, because you're a communicator, you can break it down to the smallest denominator and say, okay, what does this mean to me? What does it mean to my future? What is it going to do?
What are the benefits?
Yeah, what are the benefits?
Okay.
Why am I interested in this?
Okay, well, we'll start with how it did. We'll start with something that people are familiar with. Okay, so what we're familiar with is things like print media, where you get to read something and look at a picture, and that's how the internet used to be. It used to be you just read something and looked at a picture, but then Internet 2.0 came along and it became much more interactive with social media and that kind of thing. So it was now you could actually put your own input into it. So there's the interactivity. Then we got into video, where what you were looking at was moving, streaming video and that kind of thing. And again, this meant that you could absorb a lot more information, but it was quite linear. It was quite, beginning, middle, and end kind of thing. You would watch it, and anybody who's ever tried to instruct themselves through YouTube videos, they're fantastic, but you do spend a lot of time pausing and rewinding, and that interactivity is now gone. So let's bring those two together. So we've got the interactivity. So we're trying to get the interactivity of Web 2.0, where you can actually speak and listen at the same time and have full control over the situation with that rich media of video. And we're trying to make it feel a bit more natural, a bit more real. So you're not having to stop what you're doing and click on a button that says rewind and take it back and so forth. So that's what virtual reality actually allows us to do. Because with virtual reality, you can be in something which is live. You can be in something with a number of other people. You can be in an environment with a number of other people, so that you're all taking part simultaneously. But distance is no longer an issue. Those people could be in Abu Dhabi, Singapore, Australia, New York simultaneously, and that's not going to be a problem. They'll see you, you'll see them, and you're all taking part in the task. Nobody's set foot in a jet plane, no carbon emissions, all that kind of thing, and no delays.
So you can then bring up. I could imagine everybody, much like a Zoom session, only your virtual reality is that you're sitting in a conference room.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's take this a step further. If you add this to augmented reality, and to those of you who aren't familiar with the differentiation between augmented and virtual reality is everything you see in virtual reality is digital. It's an opaque medium. You can't see the real world. You can only see the virtual world. Okay. Augmented reality is an overlay of digital onto the real world, so you can see both. So you can see the room that you're physically in, and you can see the digital media. Now let's imagine that you have a meeting room, and it's, for the sake of argument, in Glasgow, the best place in the world, and you've got, say, 5 people in that room. Those 5 people are all wearing augmented reality headsets, so they can all physically see each other and they can all physically see the room. Simultaneously, you have people in Singapore, Australia, and Abu Dhabi who are dialing in from elsewhere. They're not physically in the room, but you can see them and they can see you. So that means that you've got people who are physically in the space and people who are not physically in the space, but it's as if they're all physically in the space.
Interacting as if they are in the physical space.
Exactly. And as we know from text messages where people get into arguments with each other because they've misconstrued something that was meant as ironic, because they've not put in a judiciously placed smiley or winky face or something like that.
Comma.
Killed by a comma, exactly. Hoist by your own colon. So yeah, that can be an issue. We know it can be an issue with mobile with phones, because you don't get to see people's expressions. It's just not the same. And even with Skype and Zoom, and they've improved over time, but I don't think any of us would say that these are perfect media. what you miss out on, and bearing in mind that I do have a strong interest, if not a professional background in psychology and so forth, I'm very interested in things like micro expressions and micro muscle movements, where we're actually unconsciously conveying meaning and belief and tone and so forth. And you just don't really get that, I mean, I could be lying to you right now, and if I was face to face with you, you'd probably get a vibe, but through this medium with these tiny little windows, not so much. And also, what's my body language, what's my tone, what's my posture, all that stuff can become real. And that's before you even get into the fact that we can actually simultaneously interact with virtual objects. Like, say for instance, we were engineers and we were wanting to look at machinery and do some testing out of machinery, or we want to go inside a helicopter. I did a post on that recently. And, you're a pilot. I'm a structural engineer. That's fine, but I'm never going to have to fly a helicopter. So I can design the thing, but then I can sit next to you and you can go, oh, this is great, but the windows aren't actually showing me the landing fields properly. So I'm going to need you to extend those windows. Engineer says, yeah, no problem. Dead easy. This is the kind of stuff that you can do in virtual reality, these shared experiences where you can both look at stuff simultaneously and go, here's what needs fixed, here's what needs improved, which you just can't do in any other medium.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful. I want to highlight, we got Carol, Lori, Sherry, Nico, Diana, Sheldine, all of the people that are joining us right now. I just want to highlight that we're talking about augmented reality, virtual reality, and technology with David from Glasgow. Great place to be, right?
Best place to be. Best place in the world.
I'm gonna have to come and check that out, David. So
you are.
So I just want to thank you so much for being here. And as we talk about these interesting things, leave some comments if you have some questions for David. Love to have your questions, and I'd love to be able to answer your questions and get your feedback. The one thing that I want to talk about, David, is as we accelerate these ideas, they drive the technology. And as we experience today, this thing is StreamYard is in beta, and I'm really enjoying it. And I've been a beta tester on a lot of technology, and as it kind of evolves, there are bumps and bruises along the way, and early adopters get to test things out and find out what's broken and what works and everything that goes along with it. So I have to imagine that the technology behind virtual reality or augmented reality is driving a lot of people to learn new skills. So how is the tech keeping up with the ideas, the conception of this technology?
Well, you were saying it's driving people to learn new skills. What I'm finding interesting is it's actually allowing people to use traditional skills in a way that they previously haven't. And we were talking earlier on about collaboration. Because I'm obviously working with augmented as well as virtual reality, if I were creating video, as I had in the past, I would use a scriptwriter, a videographer, maybe somebody who was a specialist in layout and choreography. If I was doing a blog post, all I would need is a copywriter, maybe with a good bit of knowledge of what they were writing about. So if I'm doing augmented reality, I need an animator, I need an illustrator, I need a scriptwriter, I need a storyboard artist, I need a user interface specialist, I need a mobile phone app specialist. All these people I need to bring together. Now, these are pre-existing skills. What we're doing isn't rewriting the rulebook for any of these people. They're all doing what they do. It's just that they're doing it together now. They're doing it in a media which actually requires all of these skills. And that's what's so wonderful about it. We're not making anybody redundant here, or we're not forcing anybody to learn new skills that they didn't already have.
Right.
Unity or Unreal developers, these are game 3D engines that you'll see in common computer games. Those people exist.
So bring it home to a real world example. Say I'm a small business owner. How could I leverage, or how could I utilize these technologies in an everyday world? You brought up, the script writer, or you brought up some, common, job descriptions. Is this something that, it's just like, it comes back for me, the conference room table, where you get in a room and you start brainstorming things and having the opportunity to brainstorm with people that you don't have to have them travel into town and set up at a hotel, and you don't have to order donuts or anything like that. You can just fire up an augmented reality session and have a brainstorming session, and it's much more real, and the body language and everything about it is much more apparent in the communication. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
That's it. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Although the key application for that's the key application for something like global engineering. That's where we originally started working on this with a company called Deuce Babcock that provide energy services to the likes of Shell and BP and that kind of thing.
Same thing with remote medicine, right? I mean, medical treatments abroad. I mean, where a doctor can. I mean, I used to work with a lot of orthopedic surgeons, and they would have somebody read the X-rays all the time, so they can see and know and understand what they're looking at, and they validate that from somebody else somewhere else. So it's
well, actually, it's funny you should say that. I was just doing a conference in Serbia, in Novi Sad, and it was the NS Virtual Conference, and we were talking about just that already a surgeon in, let's say, Nova Scotia could be training another surgeon in Slovenia on how to do a really intricate process. Now, they can actually be using what we call haptic feedback technology, whereby they can actually feel what they're touching in virtual reality. Now, normally when you're teaching surgery, it's taught on cadavers, it's taught on dead bodies. So this is fine for getting an idea of where the organs are and, where they are in relation to each other and different tissues, but it's dead tissue, A real patient is alive. And therefore, their heart beats, their things move, and this is something that you can get with the haptic feedback. You can feel that pulse, you can feel to avoid this organ, you can feel the difference between an inflamed organ or otherwise. And also, getting access to these cadavers is extremely difficult. In the digital world, you can work in as many bodies as you want. There's not going to be any issue, and your tutor can be anywhere in the world. And let's face it, for very specific forms of surgery, there's very few people who can do it. So this would mean that they can transfer their knowledge in the same way that books allowed us to transfer knowledge before, but live and in a physical one-to-one mentoring way, what we call low-road learning, a much better way to absorb information by doing, to anywhere in the world. So this is something that we couldn't do before. But Russ, before we started this, I thought I'd better have a little list. I'll put together a little list of the potential applications, just so that I'm prepared. Here's the little list that I prepared.
There will be a test.
What I realized was that there's even the jobs that we're doing, and we're only one small AR/VR company in Glasgow in Scotland, so a small city in a small country in a small corner of Europe, which itself isn't as big as it thinks it is, and yet we've done literally hundreds of different applications, and there's maybe about 20 other organizations like us in Glasgow alone, and they're all doing this kind of stuff as well. So really, where it becomes useful is very much down to the needs of the individual. It's the most tailorable technology I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a few. I'll take you through it very, very quickly. Some of the people in the list.
Through a couple of these really, really quick, David.
Okay. So wayfinding. So finding your way around places. Now, Google are already doing this with a version of Google Maps where you can see where you're going and it's pointing you with an arrow. But a company called Studio 5 that I met up with when I was in Serbia, they did that studio. They came up with a wayfinding thing for the Lego theme parks where the little Ninjago characters are popping up in front of you and wandering around and taking you places, literally taking you places. It's like practically holding you by the hand. Wayfinding is amazing. You can use it in commercial onboarding for new staff in a new building, new premises, or helping people to navigate their way around a city or a forest or a building. It's a great way of doing it. Site visits, as we mentioned before, not only can we have live remote meetings, but we can actually live take you into a 360-degree video of, let's say, a hazardous environment like a refinery or an offshore oil platform.
Right.
15 people can be there doing a site inspection, having never left their offices, much less having to get the insurance and the protection and the transportation to go there. But it's real and it's live and it's being presented live, and we're doing that right now. Solar and roof stuff. So I'm big on renewable energy, because a lot of what I'm talking about is to remove the requirement for transport where it's simply not required. And What I'm also trying to do is facilitate the installation of wind farms, solar power, and so forth. Now, the problem with that is getting people on roofs, right? That's hazardous. It requires things like scaffolding, road closures, that kind of thing. Very, very dangerous as well. With a drone, you can just fly that drone around an entire domestic area and gather all the information through a process called photogrammetry, where the different photos are built up into a 3D model. And then your solar assessors and engineers can be in their office rattling through this process of going, that roof's good, we'll put the panels here, and then turning that into a real 3D model that can actually calculate the return on investment, the solar yield, the kind of panels that are required, the design. All of it's done in a fraction of the time. Marketing and PR, you'll know yourself, advertising background, that 7/10 of it, 70% of your job as a marketer is research rather than promotion.
Yeah.
And what this does is it allows augmented reality, it allows us to get the same degree of research information from our out of home advertising, our posters and billboards, that we previously could only get from social media or digital marketing, where you know who's been looking at what and when and what they did next. You can now do this out of home with augmented reality. You can see who triggered which advert. You can turn a movie poster into a movie trailer, and then that movie trailer becomes the ability to buy the tickets. The same could be said of a book cover, which can be an excerpt from the book on Kindle, or an album cover, which can be an excerpt of the album on your Spotify. And again, this also gives you the opportunity to buy, so it bridges that digital divide. So from a marketing perspective, it's pretty wonderful.
It's the whole journey. It assists in the whole journey, the entire journey of what you're experiencing, right? Did I lose you? David? Are you there?
Oh, I'm back.
You're
Can
back.
you see me?
I can see
thank you. Thank goodness. Sorry, I think I must have.
And this is the joy of live broadcasts. The live broadcast. Here we are live.
We are indeed. I disappeared again, but I think I'm back.
That's okay.
So
the reality is that there are a lot of real world applications that are being enhanced and kind of augmented, if I could use the term, augmented by this technology. And the reality is that people like yourself, the innovators, the creators, the communicators, are really taking this to going through those stages of development, so the real world connections can utilize it in an everyday way. Yeah. And I think we're going to see more and more of this. Like shopping, the shopping experience is going to evolve. I have to imagine. I mean, it's like with you go see a car. It's like, okay, well, why would I want to travel across town to see a car lot? You could actually, how the cars are now turning on the where you pick the color, you change the wheel style, everything else. I mean, we're seeing elements of this already, and we don't even notice it because it happens in a way that is, you don't think about the tech behind it when you see it in an advertisement, right?
It's true. It's true. These changes are incremental and they build up. If we were to go back even 5 years, or take ourselves from 5 years into the present and say, have a look around, tell me how things have changed, we would say things have changed unrecognizably, but we don't notice it because it happens in these little increments. We don't really know the technology that's going on in the background, like you say. But the changes, it seems to me, there are certain. In order to kind of predict the way things are going, I tend to look back and I go, okay, what were things like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? Yeah. How quickly did they change and where are they now? And that gives you a slight ability to be able to predict the.
Well, it wasn't very long ago that we couldn't do what we're doing right now on live.
Exactly.
Yes. And the fact that we're broadcasting to YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn all at the same time and recording it is mind-blowing to so many of us in tech that had to bust our knuckles and break things down and use engineers and put in circuits and everything else. I mean, it used to take a team of engineers to do anything even close to this. And now we're just sitting here having a casual conversation online, and to me, it's just amazing. and it's available to anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a special permit for this. I mean, it doesn't require anything like that. And so we are in a very innovative time in history, and all of these innovations, and like we talked about at the start of this conversation, the collaboration between people is even more important than it ever has before in the history of mankind. It's like, let's start collaborating for causes that matter. Let's start collaborating and working together to make a difference in the world. And I think, there's a lot of things that if you turn on the news, it's all bad. The world is horrible. However, when I talk to people like yourself, a lot of things are good. A lot of good things are happening. A lot of technology, people are innovative. They're spreading kindness. They're doing good things. And I want to highlight more of that, David. So
yeah. I mean, good doesn't sell newspapers, so we tend to get the gloom through the mainstream media. It's one of these ways. If you can create a sense of fear and anxiety, then the response to fear and anxiety is to learn more, to safeguard yourself. And of course, that if you need to learn more, you're going to buy more newspapers. You're going to watch more TV. But if we said everything's great, people would go, brilliant. I'll just go and mow my lawn now. But you're right. There's a lot of good things happening, and it's good that we're alive to the problems that we have, and we're alive to the requirements for better distribution of medical knowledge, alive to the requirement for lower emissions fuels and so forth. Just even however you feel about things like climate change or whatever, we may well run out of non-renewable fuels. What do we do when we run out? So there's always merit to finding other ways to do it, and that's what we're helping to try to do. And it also helps with things like wealth redistribution and so forth. If you don't have to pay for your energy, if you can yield it from natural stuff, then it means that people aren't having to worry, well, how am I going to keep my house warm or cold?
Right.
They can just get on with doing what they want to do, and that's got to be a benefit. But
I think opens the opportunities, and I just see abundance. Coming out of learning and connecting and collaborating with other people around the world, and not having to jump on a plane and travel 12 hours to have a meeting. It's like,
absolutely,
it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean,
well, there's not that many people that say, oh, I really enjoy business travel. Personally, I kind of do, but I'm told that wears off eventually. But usually it's airport followed by hotel, followed by meeting room, followed by hotel, followed by airport. It's not like you really get to see the place, Tourism, I think, is a different kettle of fish. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Can we replace the experience of tourism? Can you replace experiencing the food, experiencing the culture, experiencing the smells and the temperature and all those unique things, quality of light and so forth? And I don't think so. And actually, I'm starting to think, do I even want to disrupt that industry? There's a lot of cultures which are reliant on that industry.
Because we can doesn't mean we should, right?
Exactly. So maybe we can just use the technology to help engineers come up with less destructive ways of getting people to new places. Electric planes, that kind of thing.
That would be nice to start. So
yeah. I know I have been told that once you've arrived somewhere digitally or virtually, then you actually want to go there physically even more. One of the things that a friend of mine, Craig Hendry, has been doing with virtual reality is allowing people with autistic spectrum disorders to go to new places in a controlled environment, an environment that they control. So they tend to get overwhelmed by too many senses or too many unfamiliar experiences at once. And if you can go to a place that you're planning to go just visually, and if it's overwhelming, you just take off the headset. And then over time, add in the sounds. Over time, we can add in the people. And that way, by the time the person actually arrives, they've formed a pattern in their head. They're familiar, so they're not going to be overwhelmed. They can actually enjoy it as you or I would with our advanced sensory filtering abilities that they lack. And this has been done in reverse. Veterans coming back from war who are overwhelmed by, they become accustomed to being in constant danger, and they become accustomed with constant noise and so forth. And when you bring them back into a home environment, a bit of their brain can't quite cope with that. It's too quick. So what they're doing is the opposite there. They're saying, okay, put on your virtual headset, here is a battlefield situation. Everything's going on. You know, you can hear, see, and smell everything. You know, bombs going on around you, and then slowly over the course of months, removing these until eventually 2 months later they're down to just being in an arid surrounding, surrounded by their friends. And this is actually proving really good for dealing with PTSD and reducing some of the problems that veterans are returning from war with, you know, that cause things like everything from stress disorders to domestic violence. You know, it's just an interesting approach to desensitization and resensitization.
Another area that I could see a lot of value is you know, the blind, the sighted, impaired, and cues to know where, you know, everything's going. So accessibility could really be enhanced, I think, in some ways for virtual reality and augmented reality in terms of sound and notifications. I've seen I've had a friend talk about those elements in his business, and he's impaired that way. So
it's incredible. I went to Berlin and I got to try something called the Noctivagus dinner in the dark, and it's you basically go into a basement and then into a sub basement and you have your dinner. There's no light, none at all. It doesn't matter how long you're in there, your eyes won't adjust to the light because there is no light. It's utter pitch darkness. Now, your waiters and waitresses are all blind or visually impaired. So to them, it's just another day in the office. It's not a problem. They can get around, and it was really interesting for me because a lot of them were getting around through making clicking noises or whistling. They were basically, it was their own personalized sonar that they were creating. They could hear what was around them by the nature of the sound hitting back, and that got me thinking. When I got back to Glasgow, I started learning about binaural recording. For those of you who aren't familiar with that one, it's actually relatively straightforward. You just get two microphones that are ear width apart, and they pick up the audio coming from one direction or another, and there's a tiny, tiny delay between which ear picks up and which bit of sound next, and the brain can interpret that as distance and direction and all sorts of clever stuff. So it's not that difficult to achieve technically, because you just then feed that back through a pair of normal earphones and your brain does the rest. That's where the processor is. But it got me thinking, there's a lot more involved in virtual reality than just visual, you know, which then got me thinking about olfactory, smell, which is obviously extremely important for memory because it passes directly through your memory cortex. And it got me thinking about tactile. We were talking about haptics. So I started talking to some people that there's a company called Ultra Haptics in the UK that use ultrasound to create sonic fields. So you can feel an object that isn't really there. But there's also, I did a presentation at the University of Glasgow, and I happened to meet some people from a department there who are using ultra haptics, but they can create not only the shape, but the texture and the temperature of the object. So let's think for a second. You're picking up a glass or a cup, right?
Yeah.
That glass or cup could be glazed or unglazed. It could be smooth or rough. It could have hot coffee in it or cold water in it, and you would be able to tell the difference. And there's nothing there, just sound waves. It's amazing.
Insane. Well,
I know.
David, this has been fascinating, and I really the whole point of this show is to bring interesting topics and interesting people to the forefront. And I just wanted to highlight you and what you're doing in this arena. And I know we're way over time, and I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity of being here and talking about this. I want to stay.
Thanks for having me.
And where is the best place that people can get in touch with you? Because I think I have, let me see.
Most likely in my case, it's LinkedIn. I'm pretty much addicted to LinkedIn. So I'm on here every day. And I try to put up posts every day from other people because there's so many people doing such amazing stuff. So I try to keep it interesting.
Oncor.
And my website.
Boom.
So yes, oncoreality.com. So it's short for Oncor, an online corporate virtual reality. So yeah, if you want to find me, sure, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always interested to hear challenges or new applications of this technology or things that you think, can this be used for this, or can you help me with this? There's almost always a solution. I can almost always connect you with someone. I love it.
Let's discover a few more solutions in the world. So. Yeah, let's use challenges and build them into opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Russ. I really appreciate it.
Kindness is cool. Smiles are free. And you enjoy the day.
You too. Bye-bye.